Hello there, welcome once more to this YouTube channel. Kindly subscribe to this channel. The topic is comparative anatomy of the skeletal system of vertebrates. This is part 2, comparative anatomy of the skeletal system of vertebrates, part 2. Let me remind you about the dermatocranium. The dermatocranium is the portion of the cranium that is composed of dermal bones. The cranium actually is the skeletal framework that you have in the head. So vertebrates have the dermatocranium, and this is the portion of the cranium that is composed of dermal bones. The dermatocranium in vertebrates comprises the skull roof, the facial skeleton, and then very peculiar to the fishes, you have opercular bones. Vertebrates such as reptiles and birds are examples of vertebrates that you can, they are examples of class of vertebrates that have the dermatocranium. Splachnocranium is the portion of the skull of vertebrates that rises from the first 3 brachial arches, and it forms the supporting structures of the jaws in vertebrates. Splachnocranium. You have cartilage, which includes Meckel's cartilage. There is a part you call the rostrum, then the labial part, mandibular bone is there, then the mandibular part is there, then hyomandibular and hypobrachial, as well as the basibrachial cartilages are all make up the splachnocranium in vertebrates. Now, what are the types of jaw movements that you see in vertebrates? What do you mean when you say vertebrate is paleostylic? It means none of the arches attaches directly to the skull. Like the agnathans are paleostylic. So when you see you look at the arches, none attaches directly to the skull. It's as if they don't have a jaw bone, because it doesn't attach directly to the skull. What do we mean when we say a vertebrate is hyostostylic? A hyostostylic vertebrate has mandibular arch which suspends from the skull by itself, and it suspends from the skull by itself and not by the high bone. You find examples of hyostostylic vertebrates are seen in lungfishes, amphibians, and some higher vertebrates as well. So the hyostostylic vertebrates have the jaws connected directly with the cranium instead of indirectly by the hyoid hack. While I said the paleostylic, you have the brachial arches there, and the brachial arches are not attached directly to the skull. So paleostylic is seen arches as well, and it gives support to the gills in fishes. Then, what do we mean when we say a certain vertebrate is amphistylic? Amphistylic, this means that such vertebrate has an upper jaw partly free from the brain case and is braced by hyomandibular cartilage. I'm talking about the amphistylic vertebrates. There is attachment of the mandible to the skull by a ligament. Examples include the sharks. What about hyostylic vertebrates? Hyostylic means the vertebrate has jaws connected with the cranium by hyomandibular and the sympletic bone. So you have a mandibular arch attached via the hyomandibular and sympletic bone. You find that in some bony fishes. So some bony fishes are examples of hyostylic vertebrates. What about the Metautostylic? The Metautostylic are vertebrates that can be seen like tetrapods. Such vertebrates have upper jaw which suspends from the lower jaw. So the upper jaw suspends from the lower jaw. You find it in some tetrapods. Some mammals have Metautostylic jaws. Metautostylic. You have direct attachment of the mandible via the quadrate bone. You find that also in amphibians, reptiles, and birds. So amphibians, reptiles, and birds are Metautostylic. Now let me talk about the types of vertebrae that you find in vertebrates. It's actually the presence of vertebrates that make us special, that single us out as vertebrates. It's the presence of vertebrae. The vertebrae bones are the bones that single us out and make us peculiar, and that's what gives us the name vertebrates. So now we want to look at the types of vertebrae that you find in vertebrates. What do you mean when you say a certain vertebrate is Aspondyle? It means it has no center. When you look at the vertebrate of the vertebra of such a vertebrate, there is no center part there. There is no centrum. So we say it's a spondyle. Example of a spondyle is the hagfish. The hagfish is a vertebrate that falls into this category, a spondyle. What of Stereospondyle? Such vertebrates have single centrum that is separate from the rest of the vertebra. So example of Stereospondyle includes the mammals like humans. Then Diplospondyly, there are 2 centers per segment. For every vertebral segment that you find in Diplospondyly, there are 2 centers. Example of Diplospondyly, some fishes are Diplospondyly. Then Embolomerous. Embolomerous means the vertebrate that is actually Diplospondylos, that has 2 centers per segment of the vertebra, and in addition you have these 2 centers having equal size. So a Diplospondylos vertebrate with equal sized centers is called an embolomerous vertebrate. What about Polyspondyle? Polyspondyle means a vertebrate that has 6 centers per segment of the vertebral column. Example of Polyspondyle is seen in the lungfish. Now, Aspidospondyle. Examples include lungfish and some tetrapods, some ancestors of the tetrapods. Such vertebrates have separate centers and spines. The spines are separated from the centers of the vertebrae. Holospondyle is a vertebrate that has fused center and spine. Such vertebrate is called holospondyle. Example is the bony fish, some of the bony fishes. So that is the holospondyles. You need to know that the vertebrates have both appendicular and axial skeleton. Don't forget that. I have mentioned that before. So the vertebrates have both appendicular and axial skeleton. The appendicular skeleton that you find in vertebrates consists of pectoral and pelvic girdles. Some vertebrates have no appendicular skeleton, like the agnathans, the amphibians, snakes, and some lizards. All these don't have appendicular skeleton, while some other vertebrates have much reduced appendicular skeleton. Now, pectoral girdles. The pectoral girdles, you remember the appendicular skeleton is made up of the pectoral and pelvic girdles. The pectoral girdles are very important. They are anterior appendages. They have bones. In vertebrates, you have bones making up the pectoral girdle. You also have membranous structures. You must know that the early fishes had 3 replacement bones, what we call the coracoid, the scapula and suprascapular. And there are also series of dermal bones that the early fishes have. They have clavicle, the sclerum and supraclerum. They also have the post-temporal bones. So all these are dermal bones. Then the later bony fishes that you have that evolved, what we call the like example is the ganoid fish. It has a reduction in number and size of the replacement bones. Then the tetrapods, just notice the evolution that is going on now. Tetrapods have reduced dermal bones. Their dermal bones are reduced in number in the tetrapods. Then you must note that dermal bones are reduced in number in the tetrapods. Don't forget to check out other videos on part 3 of the comparative anatomy of the skeletal system of vertebrates. Also look at the video on part 1 of the comparative anatomy of the skeletal system of vertebrates. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Goodbye for now.